Last night, I got a chance to see Joker Folie, and this is the most excited I've been to talk about a movie in a long time. My God, there is so much to talk about, and I just can't wait to get into this. And I will just talk, first I'm going to talk about what people thought, because every opinion is going to be different, and I'm going to say the mass majority of the audience that I was with clearly hated this movie. They handed out IMAX posters, not like, of course, small handout to everybody sized ones. And people were throwing them out as they were walking out of the theater. There was a good amount of booing from my crowd once the credits started. Yeah, so that was my theater's experience. This is not going to have good audience scores. In fact, I would say that this is probably going to be Last Jedi 2.0. I see a lot of people who are fans of the first movie, who are comic book fans, watching this and going, what the heck was that? What was the point? There will be a good amount of people that watch this and say, hey, that was great. At the same time, there are issues with this movie. There are a plethora of issues that I have. At the end of the day, I'm in the crowd that defends this movie. I actually think this movie was pretty good. There's a lot that I like and a lot of stuff that honestly took me a minute to interpret, because last night when the movie ended, I spent hours thinking about this. There's no way I could have properly reviewed this movie last night, because my head was just in a whirlwind of everything I just watched, because part of me was questioning myself, what was the point of that? But I refused to believe that the people in the same exact team who made the first movie, which I thought was brilliant, really made a sequel that was that useless. I don't think they would have agreed to make a sequel. I mean, I know Warner Brothers pushed them to do it, but I don't think that they would purposely or even make a sequel at all that feels like it has no purpose, because I thought about it a lot last night, was thinking about it. Like, this movie kept me up. Like, this is a movie that really had me thinking the first time in a long, long time, probably since Dune 2 I've thought about a movie this much. And it was like around 2 a.m. like a thought went into my head and I was like, oh my God, I get it. This is fantastic. And it's a lot of things that people won't like. The ending of this movie, not gonna say it, obviously, no spoilers. People are gonna hate it. I'll be completely transparent with you guys with my experience with this movie. The ending for me was leaking around the internet. I read it 2 days ago. Not purposefully, it was kind of against my will. It's like, I saw it, I was like, well, I can't unread that. I knew what the ending was before I saw Folie à Deux. I watched Joker 1 again, and I knew the ending to Folie à Deux, and something about 20 minutes into Joker 1, I was like, wait a minute, that ending is genius, because at first I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I was like, I need to see the movie, see what I think first, but then I watched Joker 1 again, I was like, wait, this is the perfect ending. I'm fine with it. And I can't say what that thing is that told me that it was going to be a perfect ending, because it would really just spoil it if I told you what the thing in Joker 1 was. Like I said, a lot of people that are disappointed with this movie, but I am not. I think that this movie had a lot of really genius ideas, and this is stuff that I can talk about. The core of this movie is about people's expectations. What do people expect from somebody like the Joker, and what do people expect from a movie like Joker? Because this movie is not at all what you expect. This is a half musical. It's courtroom drama with Harley Quinn that's played by Lady Gaga, that there's a lot of singing. It's a lot of things that would not be at all what you would think this movie would be, especially compared to the first movie. There are elements like that will just automatically turn off viewers, like the fact that there's musical numbers in this film are going to make people go, I'm not so sure. I think at the core of this movie, like I said, about expectations, because people expect Joker or Arthur Fleck to be a certain way, to really be the symbol for what they believe about society. That people who agree with everything he said that night on the Murray Franklin show. And it's stuff that clearly Joker believes, but the question is, does he regret it? And that's a question that I don't really think is answered until like the very, very end of the movie. And so when you have expectations like that from the people that follow him, there are sides that are going to be completely disgusted with what he thinks. And people just have their expectations of who they idealize, and once they see who they really are, they are really just frankly disgusted. And I think that just pairs a perfect parallel to the first film, with how Joker idealized Murray Franklin and how basically the same exact thing happened. And I think the theme of idealization and obsession for the wrong reasons is really what this movie's core is about. And it feels like a perfect response to what the madness was of the reaction to the first film. And I think this one's going to be crazier, but for different reasons. And I think the approach to that was genius. And of course, there's a lot of other stuff in this movie to talk about. I'll talk about the technicals first, because that's easy. Lawrence Shaw's cinematography is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous, stunning. It's a stunning looking movie. It's one of the best looking movies this year. I would say that this deserves an Oscar nomination for cinematography, though I do doubt that this will get anything at the Oscars at this point, now that I've seen the movie and seen everybody else's reaction. But the cinematography in this film is just absolutely wonderful. I think it's a very, very well made movie. I think it's a little long. I think 10 minutes could have gone, and I think that is 10 minutes like probably from like the courtroom stuff, because while the courtroom stuff is where you really feel Arthur's character playing tug of war between Arthur and Joker, and I really did appreciate a lot of that. And you see this in the trailer. There's a part in the movie where Joker directly addresses the jury himself as Joker. And it does feel a little long at that point. It feels like we're just kind of watching the same thing on repeat. It feels like we're going from musical number, courtroom. And speaking of musical numbers, the musical numbers in here in the first act really worked with me. I was really in love with the musical numbers the first third of the movie, but then once the movie shifts to this courtroom drama, the musical numbers feel a little bit more isolated and not necessarily justified. I don't mean justified, but they don't feel very impactful anymore. It's always used to emphasize Joker's mindset and his thoughts, particularly when it gets very like set piece heavy. But once it starts to get a little bit more deeper into the movie, sometimes it feels a little unnecessary because you could kind of feel that's what he's thinking through Phoenix's amazing performances anyway. It just doesn't feel like, it felt like the first act they had something good going with it, and by the time we got towards the end of the movie, I was scratching my head a little bit as if all of them were necessary. Not that any of them are bad. It's not like, I'm also not a big musical person, and that says a lot with me. I didn't hate the musical element. It's just I found myself just kind of like going, okay, I don't know if those last few were necessary, but I do also see myself saying that a lot with a lot of musicals anyway. So I don't know if this movie will be any different. If you're a musical fan, will you like this? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if anybody will like this movie. Maybe I'm the only one. I've seen a lot of reactions go, oh, this sucked. So Lady Gaga's in this movie, and she's there as our Harley Quinn, or they just call her Lee Quinn in this movie. And I thought she was very good in it. I thought she was honestly excellent with the time that she had. But at the same time, I think the movie kind of overmarketed her a little bit. Like it's marketed as this duo movie, and it really doesn't. It doesn't feel like that as you're watching it. To me, it still definitely felt like a Arthur Fleck solo movie with Lee Quinn like kind of there. In fact, I would say that she's not really there as Harley Quinn. She's really there to be like a symbolic version of the messages that this movie is trying to convey. So if you're going to this movie for comic accuracy, you're not going to get that. But I think you kind of knew that from the trailers and how the first movie went. There's so much to talk about with this movie, and I'm sure there's something I'm going to be forgetting to talk about. I did talk about how it does get a little long towards the end with the courtroom stuff, and it feels very repetitive, and that's definitely when I think the movie was at its lowest. I think, like I said, 10 minutes could have, or even 15 minutes could have gone, and that would put it about at the same runtime as the first Joker film. I would have honestly cut a little bit more, or I would have added a little bit more stuff that they cut with Lady Gaga's character and cut some of the musical elements. I felt like there could have been a better edit with this movie, or a sharper script tune up to the last half when it comes to balancing between the musical numbers and the courtroom stuff that they were doing. I will say though, there is like a complete turning point in the last 20 minutes of this movie that I honestly forgot was going to happen. You see a brief little glimpse of this in the trailers, but I totally thought it was going to be imaginary based off of the trailers. But no, it's real. It happened, and the movie really went for it there. And it was really a jolt of energy that the movie needed for the last 20 minutes, because I remember thinking, I was like, okay, this is cool and all, but when are we going to get some like, just a little bit more kind of like intriguing, more engaging stuff? Because while I was always entertained by this movie, I was never bored. I was definitely going like, oh my God, if this movie is just really the way I think it's going to be for the rest of this runtime, people are going to really, really hate it. But then it kind of like gave you a little bit to have some eye candy towards the end. And it definitely, in ways towards the end, felt like a slight rehash of the first movie, but with a completely different sense of identity. I really appreciated a lot about that, and I think there's stuff that is going to be up to interpretation, and maybe I am grasping for straws for trying to interpret this, but at the same time, like I said, I refuse to believe a team that crafted such an excellent first Joker movie, even if they were forced to make a sequel, would have done a bad job with the sequel. That's my thought process. I don't think that would be the case at all, where they really made a sequel that feels this useless. I think there's a little bit more to it than people are saying that it is, and I, like I said, really enjoyed it. But at the same time, I do think repeat viewing for this movie could vary from like making the movie drag a lot more, or even working even more. I don't know. I have to see it again. I want to see it again. It's not something where I'm like, oh my God, this is like, I don't even know if I can sit through this. Some people are calling this the worst movie of the year. Like John Campy already said it was awful. And I full-heartedly disagree with that by a lot. I refuse to call, even if I hated everything about the script, like the filmmaking in this film is so excellent, I wouldn't even call the movie awful, no matter how bad the script got. Joker Folie à I want to talk more about this with spoilers, but I can't because the movie's not even out yet. I went to the fan screening, so those are my thoughts. There's so much to talk about, and there's going to be no right opinion with this movie. Like, if people are going to go to look to reviews to look for some kind of like, what will I think of the movie? I can't tell you. I really can't, and I don't think anybody else will be able to. It's a movie that you have to see for yourself, and I'm just so excited that there's a movie out right now that you don't know what you're going to think about it, because we're so in such this like review mentality of like the reviews are good or the reviews are bad, and you're going to go in, and if you have a hot take or not, you're weird weird. But this movie, there is no consensus. So you go in and you get out of it what you get out of it. And I'm not going to tell you you're wrong if you say it's awful. I'm not going to tell you right if you think it's a masterpiece. Obviously, I side a little bit more towards the masterpiece side. I mean, I don't think this movie's a masterpiece, but you know what I mean. And I'm going to give Joker Folie à Deux an 8.7 out of 10. I know you're scrolling through, this is probably the highest score you've seen in a while. And I know might probably be in the minority of this one, but I really do think, I personally think this movie's a little misunderstood. I think there is a lot going on here that people are turning a cold shoulder to, and dealing with the ending that can be interpreted as a little bit of a frustrating ending. And I will be honest, if I didn't know the ending going into this movie, and if I hadn't watched Joker the night before going into this, I don't know what I would have thought of that ending. I really don't. There's no way to know what I would have thought of it. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, anyways, comment down below what you guys thought of Joker Folie à Deux. How do you guys think the reviews are going? Do you think they're mixed negative, mixed positive? I think they're mixed negative personally. I am just so excited to talk about this movie because it's a movie that's bold, it's daring, it tries to do something different. Even if you think that this movie falls flat on its face, at least we can all say that it tried to be different than the first movie, and it tried to do something different within its genre, which is what I respected about these two movies the most to begin with. I know I've been talking about this movie a long time, but hey, I'm excited to talk about this. I know I've been slacking on reviews lately, but I really don't do reviews until I can go see Megalopolis and say, you know what, yeah, I agree with everybody. This is kind of a mess, but like some cool ideas. But I love it when a movie comes out and I feel like I actually have something to say versus when I go, okay, yeah, I'm just going to reiterate everything else I've heard. I love it when a movie comes out and I can just spiel out my thoughts. Comment down below what you guys thought of Joker if you've seen it. And yeah, like, share, subscribe, and stuff like that. And adios.